Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bid Breakfast. Morning, Rob.
Good morning.
And I'm very pleased to welcome Sam Quick again to the Bid Breakfast, or one of the many webinars that we seem to do. So, Sam, welcome. Really appreciate your time. I know you're on holiday today, and you're so passionate about this subject, you've decided to sack off the holiday and come and talk to us. So, thank you very much.
I love bidding so much. Yeah, happy to. Yeah. I also love you guys. So yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Right. Well, after all that feel good Thursday, let's get on to the subject of today, which is essentially what bid writing and the bid profession will look like in the future. And we've all got various thoughts on this, so we'll get straight into this. So the first one, which we're going to start with, is what will the future of bidding look like? Then we'll go on to the very controversial question of, will AI replace bid writers? And I think we should start that with a yes, no, with no context. And then we'll discuss what happens off the back of that. What will bid teams look like in 5 years? What new operating models are emerging? And there are some already that we've seen and will be interested to discuss. And then probably the most interesting bit for me is, what are the risks and issues with AI? So in terms of the first question then, what will the future of bidding look like? Who wants to go first on this one?
I'm just enjoying the picture in the middle.
Well, I thought that was absolute genius in terms of evolution and exponential growth, and I hope that everyone's got that.
I was going to say, I'm going to open it up for our guest Sam to go with first, if that's all right. Not to throw you under the bus.
Thanks, Rob. No, it's that graph of exponential growth that actually piqued my interest. I think that's very apt. The thing with AI that I think perhaps, well, I suppose a lot of us do know this, but perhaps haven't quite sort of put it into some sort of frame, is that AI is growing at a rate. I think it's doubling every 6 months. So its capability is doubling every 6 months. Its speed, what it's able to do, it's learning every 6 months. So to answer this question, this is quite a tricky question to answer, because whatever we say today will be completely wrong in 6 months' time. And whatever we think might be happening in 6 months' time will be completely wrong again. So it's incredibly difficult to sort of imagine what bidding might look like in the future, let alone what it might look like in half a year. Yeah. So one thing I do remember, and I think there are very few people in the world who actually understand bidding and AI. I think one of those people is a chap called Javier from Deep RFP. I think, you know, he really does get it. And I remember listening to him talk over a year ago about what he thought perhaps would be the future of bidding in, say, 5 years, 10 years time. And he caveated that with something similar as I did, and said, look, it's advancing at such a rate, it's going to be hard to really say. But if I was to guess, he said that he would imagine a situation where a supplier's AI and a client's AI would simply just communicate with each other above our heads. We wouldn't even know what's going on. You know, the AIs would be sort of making a decision and going, right, we need this particular project. They would just go out there into the marketplace, and it would get all the policies and all the CVs, and all of this stuff would be happening above our heads, and we wouldn't even know. And then all of a sudden we'll get a call from the client saying, well, our AI has spoken to your AI, and you've been shortlisted down, you know, one of 3 potential suppliers to bid on this opportunity. Give us your best price, you know. And that could all just be happening up here without us ever really realizing what's going on. That's one possible likelihood. I don't know, but I am slightly cynical. I'm long enough in the tooth to have seen a few changes, so I do genuinely worry about what the industry will look like. I can't possibly tell you what it will look like in 5 years, but I am interested to see what it looks like in 6 months' time, because I think it's going to be drastically different to what we've got today.
Excellent. All right, thanks. Rob, seeing as this has put you out of a job, would you like to come back with any kind of comments on that?
Well, I was just thinking back to a couple of years ago, and we did, I think it's 2 years ago, we did a webinar with a very well-known AI bidding company. I know we're not the BBC, but I won't plug them here. And I think looking back at the time, it's like, oh yeah, it's going to take over everything, and everything's going to look very different. I can't really say much has changed in 2 years in terms of what I do day to day. But then I think AI 2 years ago was pretty crap, actually. What it would churn out. I think a lot of promises were potentially made by various organisations about what it can do, and I don't think it is. I think it might be at a stage now where people thought it would have been a couple of years ago. But there's some stuff I'll keep back for some of the other questions, but it's interesting having the view from Australia. It's quite different over here. The councils are much smaller, for example, as are a lot of the organisations who are bidding. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them aren't using AI, or if they are, they don't have a clue what they're doing, and it shows. I think it might be slightly different in the UK at a higher contract level, but I think there is a difference between the contract levels in terms of who's procuring and who's bidding in terms of capability. I think the scenario you described, Sam, where potentially client AIs are speaking to, government AIs, for want of a better term, I think that could happen in very large contracts, multi-billion, multi-million pound contracts, because both sides of the equation will have that capability. But I think as you go down the chain, I think it's going to still be a lot more human-based. But that's just my thinking. But it will change over and over again. Things change all the time. I think one thing AI is much better at the moment is presentation, which a couple of years ago it was absolutely terrible at. So who knows where it'll be in 6 months' time.
Wonderful. So for everybody watching, we've not got a clue where it's going to be. So that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for watching.
Too right. Yeah. Yeah. No, do you know what? Well, shall we make some confident predictions?
Yeah, exactly.
And then play this back in a few years' time. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The robots will take over, and Elon Musk will be king of the world, and we won't need to do anything. There we go.
Fantastic. But it also, I think, as you were just talking, Rob, that kind of was almost an overlay to the points that I'd just sort of written down, which were, I think when it first came out, everyone thought it would take over the world, and we all got very excited or worried, depending on how you saw things. Then I think we realised it wasn't as good as we thought it would be. But now I think we're in that phase of we've started to find the problems and the holes and the gaps, and we can see how those would be filled, and all of a sudden it feels more possible that AI could be used to write really high quality bids. And I think some of the examples that I've seen already, people are using AI to write winning bids, and we're going to come on to that. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that. But interestingly, I say interesting, but I just thought for a bit of a laugh, I would ask Copilot what bid writing will look like in 5 years, just before we jumped on. Just for a fourth perspective. Yeah. And what Copilot's prediction was, it will probably be less about writing and more about strategy, which is great for me. Differentiation and evidence. Today, many bid teams spend large amounts of time interpreting requirements, gathering content, drafting responses, managing reviews. Over the next 5 years, AI is likely to automate much of this process, and then it goes through a number of different things. The highest value bid professionals will focus on winning strategy, stakeholder influence, commercial thinking, storytelling, and then there's a whole load of other stuff. But I think what that sort of alludes to is that strategy is possibly still going to be human-based, which then made me think, well, the ultimate game of strategy is chess, and we've already got Deep Blue, which has beaten the best humans in the world at strategy. So it's not impossible for that to happen as well. And I think, chess is probably one of the most challenging games in terms of strategy, particularly when you're playing grandmasters, and yet Deep Blue has beaten.
But there are only a certain set of moves you can do in chess. That's the only thing I say. It's very complicated. Whereas in theory, you can make any move in bidding. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
clear cut.
yeah, within the procurement rules, of course, though.
Within the procurement rules, but you could write anything as long as it meets the evaluation criteria. And yeah, I'm not saying of course AI could do it down the line if it's advanced enough, but I think chess is a very different kettle of fish.
I think chess is a different kettle of fish. I agree with Rob. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a complex game. Obviously, within about 4 moves, I think it opens up to millions of computations and possibilities. So that's what makes it challenge, which is great for a computer to immediately go through all those millions of possibilities. But when you say strategy, do you mean, because when you say strategy, I what I heard was the strategy that we will deploy per opportunity, using, our understanding of what that client really wants, and then developing a unique proposition to give that client what they want. I feel like when you start looking at the human element of like, the people involved in this organization and what it means to them and why they want to get, I feel like all of that cognitive, emotional, human stuff is probably something not that an AI probably can't do. That's where I imagine bidding and bid writers being able to add the most value is still that human brain.
I think it can imitate it, but what it is an extra brain that thinks in a different way. Whether that's better or complementary, I think it's probably more complementary than a takeover there, because I would imagine at least still in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to need guidance and checking. God knows what it will be like beyond that, but I might be retired by then with any luck, so it doesn't matter.
You're far too young for that, Rob.
I can hope.
Well, in that case, and just bearing in mind we have got time constraints, let's get on to the next one, which is more directly, will AI replace bid writers? And we've specifically picked writing for today. Yes or no answers only.
Are you giving me a time scale for this, or is it just a general,
Well, I think, we could say 5 years.
Oh, but, yes, but, maybe.
Let's say in 5 years.
Yes, it will at some point in the undefined future, I'm sure.
I'd agree, yes.
But I think we're still probably a way off that, depending on what you're bidding for. As I said, over here, bidding to a small council, probably not going to be replaced at the moment by AI, because there's one element to all of this, and it fitted into the last question as well, is cost. At the moment, AI is very readily available. The free models, you could probably get something reasonable out of it. It's still relatively cheap overall. I'm not entirely sure that will continue for it to be as cheap as it is, unless the infrastructure is put in place at a decent cost. I'm sure people have seen around data centers around the world. We had a local case where actually it was not allowed because it would have been right next to a school and literally towering over it in shadow. So that was actually pushed back on. I don't think the cost will remain that cheap, and there may be an issue where, it's the big boys who have got it, and the SMEs. What will they do? Will they go down the traditional route? Will they try and buy an affordable AI that's nowhere near as good? Is it better to have a human? Who knows? But if you've got millions, you could potentially be commissioning. Well, you probably are commissioning your own LLM.
Yep.
I'm sure there's plenty of issues in that. I don't necessarily know if they're ethical issues, but big companies can buy massive bid teams already. This is just an extension of that.
I think if we would look at yes and no, I think I would say yes as well. at some point in the future. But I think what's really interesting to hear from you, Sam, is, and we sort of omitted this just because we didn't want to tie this to any sort of particular organisation and have a general discussion. But your day job is obviously training people to be bid professionals. Where do you think this is going in terms of what you'll be training in the future? Will it be how to write and how to put stuff and all those things? Do you see that changing particularly?
That's an interesting question. So we use Copilot within Mace, and we have been for some time, and it's rolling out to every employee across the business. We see a lot of positives. I mean, it does save a lot of people a lot of time in a lot of different areas, but within bidding specifically, we've already had to adjust our training programs to account for people using Copilot to help them with their bid writing. So already we're sort of leaning really heavy into the training and so we've created communities of Copilot black belt users. We have drop-in. We've got drop-in sessions. We've got regular training. The message is the same, and it's consistent. Copilot cannot write your bids for you. It really cannot. It might look pretty good, but when you actually read it and get into the weeds, it's not. So a lot of our training is already focused on trying to get people to use it in the right way. Let it help you edit down sentences. Let it help you come up with better signposting. Let it give you ideas on or suggestions from a passive voice sentence to an active voice. Now, what's rather frustrating is that I've been teaching these people this for years anyway. Just use simple words, short sentences, 1 point per sentence, signpost everything, make it easy to read, try not to infer. And now I have to basically tell people how to do what I was telling them to do, but to tell AI to do it now. So there is that element to it, which is quite a little bit frustrating. But a lot of what I'm teaching as well is around using AI to conduct better reviews. And this is what we need to be a little bit careful with, because people see this AI as like a silver bullet. It's going to fix everything. They don't need to put time aside now to do a proper pink review or a red review or whatever. They can just throw it into Copilot and get something back. And that cannot be further from the truth. I mean, it's there really. The way it is at the moment, it's there as like a second set of eyes, like Rob said, a second brain, not a replacement for your brain, but just something to help you pick up something that you might have missed, or to perhaps see a theme that you hadn't noticed before. Stuff like that. It's not there to do the job for you. So will AI replace bid writers? Yes, eventually, yes, but that doesn't make the role of a bid writer obsolete. I feel like bid writers are still going to be needed for that human element, that differentiation, that linking the customer need to the clients, to our solution. So I feel like bid writers will probably just change roles slightly, not be completely displaced.
What was really interesting there, Sam, was when you said, these are all the things that I used to train people to do, and now I'm having to train them to use AI to do it. Do you think that's because AI is better at following instructions and more
Yes.
and that, I think that's the really interesting thing about this, is you can tell somebody, you can say, 1 point per sentence, all those things, and someone goes, yeah, okay, and that potentially means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Never mind the fact they might not be motivated to start writing. Never mind the fact they're going to write in a different style. And I think this is the really, I don't want to say interesting again, but I'm going to, because I'll think of another word. But that for me is where this gets into a really useful debate around, well, how efficient was it when you trained people to how efficient is it when you train AI or people to use AI to do the
People
same
to use
job?
AI. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
are you finding that the output is better at the moment compared to, say, 2 or 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Well, is it better?
Or faster, or is there an
It's
upside
faster.
to? Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
an upside, yes. There's an upside because it's faster. We're able to get from blank page to first draft much quicker. But what we've been trying to, and I mean, I've been saying the same message for a few years, is that, don't ever skip that thinking stage before you put pen to paper. I mean, that's the game changer. That's your battleground. The more time and effort you're able to put into that thinking stage of figuring out the client's needs and wants, challenges, issues, and so on, when that gets translated into the draft, then it really sings. It comes through. So the AI is able to get us to a first draft quicker. But what I'm trying to tell people is, don't then just give up, but use that time that you've saved to really do the thinking part in it, so that you can then go into that first draft and really start differentiating it, really putting in those win themes, and those statements and those win commitments, and linking it all together and really hitting the client's hot buttons. Use the time that it's freed up to do that.
Yeah. So with that in mind, and as Rob said, hopefully he'll be retired. So that's Rob on the right-hand side on a beach with his deck chair.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you and me will be doing after Rob's made his millions and we're still working? Will the bid team just be a bid director with some sort of AI prompter with a
Yeah.
reviewer and then a big AI kind of engine that sits in the middle, or how do you see it looking in 5 years?
I think we need to take a look at big tech, companies like Meta and Google and all these others, and see what they're doing, because these guys have gone heavy on AI. I mean, they have really gone in hard, because for them it really is a race, isn't it? So some of these organizations have, for the past year, 2 years, or whatever, started to completely restructure their team. So whereas before you would have, say, 50 developers reporting into one senior developer, who would then, and 10 of these guys would report into associate director developer, or whatever. You'd have all these different tiers. That looks completely different now. So instead of having, say, a team of 50, these managers now have teams of about 15 to 20 doing 50 people's jobs. And then it also means that they don't need one manager for these 50 teams. They can have one manager for about 4 or 5 different teams now. So it's completely, the workforce has just been sliced. And everyone's just given more work to do, but then told to rely more on AI to do it.
Mm.
So a lot of the programming and a lot of the coding that, say, Meta and Google and so on are actually doing, the majority of it, and I mean over 90%, is actually done by AI. What the humans are actually doing is just checking and refining.
Yeah.
And I think it
So-
comes down to the ideas people again. I was just thinking
Hmm.
about this, well, because when generative AI came in, the people that really suffered were the creatives,
Mhm.
because it was scraping every single bit of art, writing, whatever. I think hopefully it'll turn around a little bit. And if AI can do the menial tasks, then actually in our industry, the creative element still probably sits with us. I think it does have to. It's not necessarily something you can easily just scrape off the internet. You might be able to find some strategies and ideas, but I really do think it still is that complementary brain rather than the replacement brain for strategy and ideas. I think there again needs to be that differentiation between what a company like Mace or a big healthcare company might be doing, big businesses in London versus a small manufacturer in Stoke, who probably had one person doing all their bids and will still have one person doing all their bids. Whether they know how to use AI or not may still be another matter. Not everyone knows how to use it. is it even that user friendly if you don't even know where you're beginning with? I mean, if all you've got is a blank box with nothing in it, and you're just writing down what you think the right prompt is, God knows what you're going to get out. You know, if you're not being trained or given the ideas for. So again, there's that differentiation. I think in the bigger companies, Sam, I think it will go the way like big tech is going. I think bid teams will be massively shrunk. But below that level, I still think for the next few years, it's either going to be still one guy or one woman doing it, or they'll still be coming to people like me and Matt for whatever reason that might be. It might be review, it might be strategy. But I still think, and again, it comes back to that cost point as well. You know, all these big companies will be able to afford this AI and will be able to cut down their teams. What will the people below that be able to do?
Well, ideally, you know, they could, get people like you and Matt involved to have the experience and the tools to actually be able to give them something that they wouldn't necessarily get by themselves at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So I think the interesting thing about
at a very reasonable price.
Very reasonable. Ask for the friends and family discount. Yeah,
absolutely. The only example I've seen from this in terms of slightly different thinking was on Heather Melton's last podcast, which I found really interesting. And there's a guy whose name I can't remember, so apologies to that chap, but he's the only person that I have seen recently saying that he writes the first draft and then uses AI to refine drafts 2, 3, and whatever else.
Oh, amazing.
Most people were saying use AI to write draft 1 because it's quick and then refine as a human. But it was, and obviously like today, there was hardly any time to get into it, but I thought that was a really interesting, different perspective on where everybody else is going. So maybe that's an alternative model to think about. And as we're talking about models, what new operating models are emerging at the moment? Some of you've already sort of covered those AI agents where there's a procurement and supply just kind of talking away. But I think the interesting thing for me was a question that I can't remember if you and I talked about, or it was me and Rob, was what happens when everybody's got AI and everybody is turning out the same proposal, give or take a couple of words? What do we think things look like then?
Pretty vanilla. Yeah. I mean, I think it's got to come down to differentiation. I think was it your co-pilot that said that's the future differentiation? Yeah. So I mean, we try to differentiate now. Even now, you know, before AI, we try to write more persuasively than the next guy. We tried to come up with better added value. You know, we come up with win themes. You know, we're still trying to differentiate. And in the market that Mace operates in, where a lot of companies essentially offered a very, very similar, you know, thing. There was a time, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you would take a Mace bid, and a competitor's bid, and if you remove the word Mace, you might not necessarily know which company actually wrote it because it was, you know. But a lot's changed in the 15 odd years. We're much more focused, much more differentiated. So what's going to happen here? You know, if we all look the same, sound the same, quack like a duck, walk like a duck, those who find a point of differentiation and then lean heavy into that, they're the ones that are going to stand out. And we figured it out. I'm not going to tell you what it is because my boss very specifically said, don't mention that. So I'm going to shut up now.
Well, the thing that really interests me here is, like, if you take mobile phone technology and you know, 30 years ago when they first started being available to people, you know, they were very basic, and it's only 30 years and we're now, mobile phones are an intrinsic part of our lives. You know, most people can't function without a mobile phone at some point. So that point of differentiation now, Sam, I think this is the bit that really interests me, is essentially now most mobile phones are the same. You can make a call, you can text, you can, you know, there's virtual comms on it. There's also, they all do roughly the same. But why do you choose an iPhone over an Android? You know, is it the extra camera? Is it the bigger screen? I think that is potentially where we get to, is all these phones are pretty much the same. as we think a lot of proposals will be the same, but it's that one thing that whether it's brand loyalty or whatever it might be. That for me is the example that
I think there's an element here at the moment. There are, well, there are three. I'd say there's three big players on the. Oh, there's more than three big players. There are three big chatbot models, whatever. Copilot amalgamates various ones into a blend. You've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT. There are only three majorly used ones. Forgive me if I've missed any out, Sam. But what happens potentially in a world where there's 10, there's 100 different LLMs out there that people are using? That could change the game. At the moment, there are three main ones people are using, especially if they're free.
Oh, I see your point.
Or low price. So yeah, they'll be quite vanilla. But in 5 years' time, will there be loads, or will there only be two? Will there only be one because they've shut down all the others?
Well, that's really interesting, Rob, because aren't people developing? People are developing new AI tools, but they're developing them off the back of something like Claude.
Yeah.
So it's being run by. So you're kind of only branching off of the main branch, you know.
And there aren't that many branches to go from at the moment.
Yeah.
At the moment, and Google have got their own one as well, which has its issues, but I'm sure they'll catch up. Meta. But in terms of, I think the main ones that are used for API use, I think it is GPT and Claude. I think that's, I haven't seen the figures, but I imagine a significant proportion of all the AI tools run off of those. So that'll be quite interesting to see if there's a bigger explosion of that, or even within those, whether there is more of a single or a unique voice that can be created. I mean, I know you can create your own brand voice and whatever, but the same things come up over and over again, I think.
This is one of the things we worry about at Mace is our intellectual property. It's the things that we come up with are unique to us. They belong to us. We don't just put them out there into the world free of charge for everyone because that's what clients are paying for. They're paying for our intellectual property, our ability to problem solve their specific problem, not everyone's problem, their specific problem. And that's one of the risks with these AI tools is that, well, if we're asking it to help generate wind theme ideas, or we generate them ourselves and then we put them into this AI tool, how do we know that we're not going to just see this stuff come up again 6 months down the line in a competitor's proposal? How do we know that what we've given it hasn't actually been helped to train a tool somewhere else? I mean, keep in mind all of the stuff that these AIs pump out is all from and I think big companies tend to fear this anyway. So we have closed systems. So the AI is only ever really looking within our own ecosystem. It's not really going out there into the internet, supposedly. Yeah. So it's only ever our own content. So it's only going to be as good as what our library is. So that's one of the risks, is that if we don't maintain our own library of content, then we're only ever going to churn out, not very good stuff. But then also it makes accessing that library incredibly fast. So there are pros and cons to it, but we do worry about the possibility of something which is supposed to be closed not being closed, and us basically seeing or spotting our intellectual property crop up in a competitor's proposal in the future.
I know we're running over time, but there is just one interesting point on that, I think, around closed systems and closed loops. You could be self-perpetuating bad bids.
Yes.
At a very extreme level.
Yes.
And we are desperately running out of time here. So I am going to move us on in the interest of not ruining everyone's day. But I do think there is a much longer debate to be had around this. So final point here is just around risks and issues, because I think we all know that there are huge risks and issues, and we've talked about some of the issues already. So some of these things, I think the one that really winds Rob up is the Elon Musk picture down there at the bottom. And by that reaction, probably Sam as well, I don't know. But I thought there was an interview with him recently, and he said money won't matter in 10 years' time, essentially. The reason he thought that was because well, his rationale was that
because he's got a
use
lot
money
invested in crypto. No, carry on.
Well, yeah, but I think it's a really interesting point, which is people use money to buy goods and services mostly. There's probably other uses for it, but his view, and probably based on what you just said, Rob, is that there will be so many goods and services available because AI will be there to produce a lot of this stuff that money won't matter. And I think this is, if you were going to take it to a different level and say in 10 years' time the world looks completely different, that's one of those scenarios that does look completely different.
And we'll have flying cars. Definitely. That'll definitely happen at last.
Yeah.
Anyway, what people always said in the past, by now we'd have flying cars or hoverboards or whatever. But I mean, he is a man that likes to say things that are controversial, and some call it visionary, some call it less kind things. I think in outback Australia, I think money will still matter.
Mm.
I think in Silicon Valley, he might be living in a slightly different reality.
What's interesting is how quickly you dismiss that, Rob.
We don't have time.
That is for another day. The other things, and we've seen examples of this over the last probably 6 months, is how different experiments have gone mildly wrong, where a set of instructions have been given to an AI platform or agent or whatever it was, and it's broken out of the test environment and done some stuff. So again, that's something that's got to be considered. And I think coming back to your thing, Sam, about closed systems, is it actually closed?
Yeah. For how long? How securely? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing for me that is really interesting was, I can remember BBC computers when we were sort of like teenagers, and that was going to be the future. And it clearly isn't, and things have moved on. But the thing that just made me think about this was, back then, nobody saw all the issues with the year 2000 and the dates and Y2K and all that stuff, and it was a major issue. So, and actually it turned out to be nothing. But will there be something with the development of AI that will suddenly create a problem like that? And I think that's, we don't know what we don't know. Or we're not looking far enough into the future to think, well, actually, this could be a problem. So, again, I think this is probably another hour's debate. But do you want to have some final words on that, Sam? Because you look very thoughtful.
I'm actually just realizing how much of an idiot I am, and that I don't actually understand. There's so much here. I mean, again, I think I'm no AI expert. Far from it. I don't think there are many AI experts actually in the world, and especially within bidding. A handful, perhaps. Anyone who does say that they're lying to you. So I honestly don't know. I'm a bidding expert, so I can only really see it through that lens. And depending on the day and and how I'm feeling, it's either rose-tinted glasses or it's Armageddon. I really don't know what the future is gonna look like. I do believe in that we don't know what we don't know, so we can fearmonger as much as we like. I also believe in the fact that people talk a lot, especially people like that gentleman there, Elon Musk, who just, I think we put him on a pedestal and we listen to what he says a little too much. I mean, I think we just need to dial that down a little bit and dial down what everyone is kind of saying, but it's impossible to figure out, isn't it? I mean, I hope for the best, but I'm planning for the worst.
That is exactly the right phrase. Yes.
So on the back of that, and I don't expect an answer to this because we haven't got time, but is it for us to shape the future? And on that bombshell, as Clarkson would say, that brings us to an end for today. I'll just leave that on the screen while we close down. Sam, thank you as always for your time. I know we could have talked about this forever, and there are lots and lots of different things that we've talked about that need more discussion, and we could get into the weeds on. I think this is probably, it comes and goes in waves, and people ignore it and then it's back on the agenda. But I do think this is an ongoing conversation, and as you say, nobody knows what it's going to look like. There's lots of things that we're trying to figure out, but I think it is one of the most interesting things at the moment. Whether you like it or not, I think it's still going to be there. And I do, strongly believe that coming back to, we are potentially the people, not just us, but the people within the bidding world are the ones that shape the future for the next generation, because hopefully we'll all be retired on that beach.
With Rob, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, excellent. Rob, thank you again. Your thoughts are always insightful. Sam, enjoy the rest of your holiday. Appreciate how much time you spent away from the family. For everyone watching, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again in a fortnight's time on the 27th of August, and we'll see you all then.
Cheers.